We'll call the meeting to order. If everyone would please stand, face the flag, and join us if you would in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, with agenda items, we have one addition under new business. Would you add 5? And we'll just simply call it resignation.
Retirement.
Retirement would work. That's a nicer word. Retirement bit. Okay, is there anything else?
No, that should do it for changes.
Okay. With that addition, I would look for a motion to approve the agenda with amendment.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda with the amendment.
Motion by Katie.
Second.
Seconded by Bill. Any further discussion? All in favor of the approval, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Scheduled presenters. You must be David.
Yes, I am. Thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to spend a little time and share a little information with you. I am the Live Well Goodhue County Coordinator, which is the local initiative of the Statewide Health Improvement Partnership, or the acronym is SHIP. We are working to improve the health of our residents by making it easier, safer for them to walk, bike, eat nutritious food, and live tobacco-free. For the last year, I've been working with a group of local residents on a bike initiative here for Cannon Falls. And so tonight, we just want to provide you with a little information on the initiative, and then to invite you to take part in the workshop that we're going to be holding in May. So up on the screen, you can see that, our goal for this project in Cannon Falls is to make it safer, easier, more enjoyable for children, families, and seniors to bicycle in Cannon Falls. Cannon Falls has great infrastructure already with the Cannon Valley Trail, the Millstown Trail, and a lot of city trails, but there's some connections that maybe are missing. The goals of our project are really to increase the number of students who bike to and from school, increase the number of children, families, seniors who bike to and from community destinations like the pool, the parks. We would love to see people bike to the Cannon Valley Trail instead of loading their bikes up on a vehicle, driving to a parking lot, and then getting on their bikes. Those types of destinations, and then to increase the number of residents and visitors who bike to our local businesses. The picture that you see on that slide right there, last May, we came over during lunch hour and talked to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students about what keeps them from biking to school and what would encourage them to bike to school. During the first part of the month, we had the staff keep track of the number of bikes that were on the bike rack. And that early part of May, it was 5 or 6 bikes on the average. This is a picture of the day after that engagement with those students, and there's 20 to 25 bikes there. The next day, there was an addition, of 20 to 25 bikes. So with a little encouragement, it shows that there are students who are looking to bike to school. So why are we doing this? Number one, we want healthier students. We know that children who bike, it should be bike or walk to school, develop healthy habits that can last a lifetime, and they can also decrease the risk of chronic disease and obesity. We also know that physical activity improves academic performance. So children who bike and walk to school arrive ready to learn. One study has found that after 20 minutes of physical activity, children responded better or responded to test questions with greater accuracy and more brain activity than children who have been sitting. It can lower transportation costs for the school district and for families. by reducing the money needed for personal vehicles or busing. And then it reduces traffic congestion, which I know every school district struggles with, and it also provides cleaner air. So there's a variety of reasons why we're working on this. The next slide shows from the 2016 Minnesota Student Survey the response for 5th, 8th, 9th, and 12th graders to the question of during the last 7 days, how many days were you physically active for a total of at least 60 minutes, which is the recommended amount of time children should be active during the day. And you can see at the bottom, 45%, 35% of 5th graders are active for 7 days for 60 minutes. So that's, 50% of our kids are not being active at that age. As they get older, that amount, drops. And then what's really significant to me is the number of 9th grade females and 11th grade females. Over, 80% of our girls in those grades are not being active 7 days a week for at least 60 minutes. Now, there's some give and take with any survey. And what I've been finding out is kids are busy and they're participating in activities that they maybe not consider being physical activity. One time we were talking to some students and we said, well, what do you do in the evening? Well, I go to hockey practice. Well, that's physical activity, and they didn't even look at it as it was just this hockey. This is what I always do. So,
But even if looking at this, we know that our 9th graders have 52 minutes of gym every day.
Okay.
So if 5 days out of 7, we know that they have a physical education class, and even if you were to take away 10 minutes of instructional time, they're still getting 40 minutes.
Right.
I find it. Again, surveys can be skewed, I think, for reasons
and
that we don't know.
We are
Or
very
are they
fortunate.
not counting gym class? Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Yeah, and we are very unfortunate. Schools like Cannon Falls, Goodhue still provide physical education for their students. There are a lot of school districts that are reducing that because of need to do that. So again, take it for what it's worth. And so through this process, over the last year of talking to the students, talking to the parents, we have found that there are some things that we can do, very simple things that can hopefully encourage more people to start biking more. So our next steps, is we would like to increase the number of people that are on our Bike Cannon Falls team. And this is that group that is working on organizing the workshop, kind of that main go-to group. We want to recruit community members to participate in the Bike Alliance of Minnesota Bikeable Community Workshop, which will be held on Tuesday, May 7th between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. and then work with the school, the city, the county, and the state to make infrastructure improvements, and then to continue to offer education and encouragement activities. So what we're planning to do is on May 8th, there's the National Bike to School Day. We would like to partner with the school district and hopefully some of the service clubs, the senior center, to provide chaperones per se, to see how many kids on that day we can get to bike to school and then bike home, and start that process of people thinking, oh yeah, we can do that. Looking at what else we need to do to safely get the students to be able to bike to school. We're looking at piloting a new bicycle safety and education campaign. I was led to a program in North Carolina. It's called Watch for Me, and it's a motorist and a bicycle pedestrian plan that really educates both parties on the rules of the road, the safety procedures, the encouragement programs. They have developed lesson plans that any organization can use to teach kids biking, safety biking programs. The Bike Alliance of Minnesota has programs that can be offered. The Bike Alliance has also developed curriculum that meets the standards for Minnesota, so it could be implemented in the PHYED classes in the school district, which allows the school district to then reserve a fleet of bikes, so then the PHYED instructor is not dealing with adjusting bikes, filling tires, chains, working on those kind of things. Then we want to continue to host bike events, and you can see those listed on there. Then the last thing that I would like to just share some information for would be that other link, which is the schedule, and maybe you have it, yeah, you have it in your packet, of the Bikeable Workshop. So on May 7th, MnDOT, transportation folks, the Bike Alliance of Minnesota, and then the Department of Health will have staff members come to Cannon Falls to put on this workshop. And it goes through making sure we understand equity, the evaluation planning, engineering, education. We get to get on bikes and take a bike ride around the community to see where there are some challenging spots. Then we get back together and talk about different enforcement and encouragement plans, and then we develop an action plan for 6 months and 12 months. So the big ask tonight is to invite you to participate in this workshop. If it's possible for you to set aside that time on the 7th of May, we're working on the location, and we'll let you know where that is going to be. The second ask is, because our number one goal is to increase the number of students biking to school, we want to develop a school district team, so of staff, administration, volunteers, to work on specifically what that looks like. So those are the two asks: to come to the workshop and then consider joining that team where we work with just strictly school district employees and volunteers. Any questions?
Lots of information for us.
Yeah, so thank you for your time. Our next meeting for the Bike Cannon Falls project is Thursday at 1 o'clock at the Cannon Falls Public Library. So if you're free to make that, we'd love to have you come to that and meet our team and hear more.
Does everyone in the room know who Scott is? I don't know.
He's my support.
Do you know everyone?
I'm Scott Ruppke. I'm with the Cannon Valley Trail, and I've been working with David for the last year. David kind of says we put a team together, and it sounds like almost that we just started meeting, but we've been meeting for a year, and we've actually went on bike routes throughout Cannon Falls and identified some areas that need help, and we actually talked about the school quite a bit and how we think we could make things better, but we still are in that, if I'm right, David, we're still in that process of making decisions on what needs to be changed just to get everybody's input. And so, no, it's been great. So.
And my grant has some funding available, and last year the school district applied for some funds to purchase 2 new bike racks, so one for this school here, one for the elementary school. So again, we'll have some additional funds. So out of the workshop, the things that are identified as some needs, potentially my grant can help cover that. But then there are additional funds out there through MnDOT, through the Bike Alliance, different activities that can help fund these bigger projects. So, taking a look at how can we safely, design or get children to school. Is there a way that we can hook onto the Cannon Valley Trail so they can ride to there and then come up from there? That would be an expensive project, but it's a possibility. Or is there another way that we could design it to get students here without having to go on Highway 19? So those are the kind of things that we're looking for school-wise. So, good, thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Okay, our next scheduled presenter is Tim Hodges, Middle School Grading Practices. Mr. Hodges?
You gonna take over?
Good evening. Yeah, I'm gonna
Good.
be Tony Stark and take over your screen.
We can just airplay it. Yeah. He'll hijack it and we'll have to come back.
You gotta turn off.
You want me off?
Yeah.
I thought I did, sorry. There you go. You should be good.
There we go. All right, I promise to be brief and not my normal self in this presentation. Just so you know, our changes in middle school grading are not something that have happened they've happened just recently, but the discussions about this has been a years-long process. In fact, I started talking with our staff in this building about grading changes probably 6 years ago. So there has been a lot of discussion about looking at grades a different way, defining the purpose for grades, and looking at what we're doing, and then finally making some decisions that everybody could live with as far as what we're doing with grading. Before I get started in all of this kind of stuff, I'd like to say this. Everybody may think that there is a right way and a wrong way to do grading, and actually grades are probably one of the more subjective things that we do in education. They can be calculated mathematically, but the way we assign grades is purely just a matter of what the institution and what each individual educator has decided to say what is important about what a student knows or doesn't know. So that's an important thing to know right off the bat. So we looked at what all of the middle school core teachers were doing with grading, and we kind of came up with this, is that out of the 12 core classes in the 3 grades, there were only 2 classes that were doing things the same way. And that was basically because there were 2 teachers that were, those teachers were co-teaching, or not co-teaching, they were both teaching the same subject. So everybody was kind of doing things a different way. Teachers were using lots of different methodologies to determine grades. Terminology used by different staff varied from classroom to classroom. That made things a little bit confusing. And then different types of assessments were used in many different ways in every classroom. So we had everybody kind of doing their own thing, and lots of questions on what does this mean. So when we started looking at making changes, we defined a purpose, and that was the purpose was to provide clarity specifically to parents and students. We all know how we calculate grades in our individual classrooms. But students going from classroom to classroom see a different thing, and parents just kind of say, this is what the teacher says the grade is going to be. So what we want to try to do is kind of open that up a little bit so that everybody understands what's going on with that. Another goal was to remove behaviors from classroom grades, and that's probably the biggest thing that we've done in all of this, is just to separate kind of a content knowledge grade from what we're calling real skills grades, which real skills ties in with our PBIS system. We know that those are both things that we should be reporting to parents and students, but they should not be averaged together to come up with one kind of amalgamated grade for kids. So last year in our 1 hour after school sessions, I did 8 sessions on grading. So I had about 8 or 9 teachers that were with me throughout the whole year. We looked at lots of research, we looked at a lot of examples of best practice, and then we kind of spent a lot of time developing what our system was going to look like. So our system is based largely on the work of Thomas Guskey and his book On Your Mark. But we've also looked at research and work by Garth Larson and Myron Dueck. And the grading practices of Ellis Middle School, quite frankly, is largely what we patterned our changes off of. So after you're looking at all that stuff, we came and the grading committee came up with the following things. So middle school students are now going to receive 2 different grades on the report cards. One is going to be called content knowledge, and one is going to be called real skills. So this is kind of what that all means. The content knowledge grade is what a student knows about a particular content area. So that is really the one where if we want to know whether a student knows math, this grade tells you as a parent, and it tells the student how well they know the math that's being taught in the classroom. Behaviors are not represented in the content knowledge grade, and that has been one of the biggest struggles that staff have kind of had to come to grips with. So typically, something like missing homework would bring a grade down. Missing homework does not relate to what a student knows in a particular content area. Missing homework is a behavior. So we've taken that out of the grade, and we're reporting that, but we're reporting it separately from the typical letter grade. So our content knowledge grade is our typical ABCDF grading scale, so that looks the same. And the content knowledge is what we're using to determine honor roll. So that's the only thing that determines a student's grade point average. So content knowledge is broken into two pieces. There's summative assessments and there's formative assessments. So in the education world, summative assessments are the typical things like end of chapter tests, big projects, papers, presentations, lab work. That counts this year as 70% of that content knowledge grade. Formative assessment in our world are things that students use to show that they're learning, and it's a place where they can make a mistake and not have that really held terribly against them. So formative assessment is assessment for learning, and summative assessment is assessment of learning, is kind of the language that we use. So we're looking at things like homework, quizzes, daily work, journals, reading logs. Those are all things that make up that 30% of the formative assessment piece of the content knowledge grade. So we average those two pieces together and you get that ABCDF letter grade. The second part that we're reporting are what we're calling real skills. And we picked the term real because that's our PBIS system. And that's language that all of our students know in the elementary all the way through the high school. So it's not new to them. But now what we're doing is we're kind of giving a rating. So this is a little bit different. It's a rating system instead of a letter grade. And our students are rated from 1 to 3. And with a 3 being consistently showing that skill, a 2 meaning sometimes showing that skill, and a 1 meaning inconsistently showing that skill. So these are the 3 areas of real skills that we're scoring students on. Respect, R, is our classroom behavior. Effort, E, is class participation and timeliness of meeting deadlines. So for example, that student who doesn't turn in homework, the effort grade of their real skill is where that's going to show. And then A is self-regulation. So kids being able to be control themselves in the classroom, not having outbursts, being able to manage workload and all those kinds of things. So we're rating those 3 things and giving a letter grade in the middle school. So this has changed what our report card looks like. So this is what our report card looks like now. If you look up here, there is an academic performance grade. That's that content knowledge grade. And that's the typical ABCDF. And then there are the real skills, and each one of the 3 areas where we're rating are listed there. So this is new to parents. Before, parents kind of got just a list with letter grades, and now each subject area has its own kind of little chart there, and that's what that looks like now. So what we're using this year kind of as a trial rollout. So we've done this twice for first and second quarter. What the future looks like largely depends on how this year goes and how the subsequent years go. But the goal is to continue to refine our process with our middle school grades. Middle school, when we talked about this as a grading committee, middle school seemed like a good place to do that. There is less grade pressure. And grades don't have the major impact on students for college and for post-secondary education in middle school as they do in high school. So one of the other things we're looking at is the 70-30% with our, and I've got those backwards up there, but our 70% summative and 30% formative piece of that content knowledge grade, that was, this is where we're going to start. The hope is that in the next couple of years, we're going to get to the point where we have 90% of our grade comes from summative assessments and only 10% of that from formative assessments. And we know from looking at the research, the best case is actually to have 100% of a student's content knowledge grade come from summative assessment. And then formative assessment can purely be an opportunity for students to practice what they've learned, to try new things, and to have that not have a negative impact on their overall grade. Down the road, we're looking at hopefully an implementation at the high school level of this after 3 years. So our current 6th grade kids this grading model would follow them into high school, and then we would be doing that for everybody.
So now it's 90% summative?
No, right.
No, 70.
This year we're
Now it's 70.
70% summative and 30% formative.
So it's just
Yeah, next year we'll move up to 80-20, and the final year, depending on how things go, we'll be at 90-10. And then when we go into the high school, we'll continue with the 90-10 split between summative and formative assessment.
And then the real skills is the rating is 1 the highest? Or?
3, we did 3 as a high
Three
and,
as a
and
highest.
1 as a low. Yeah. So we tried to keep those things fairly simple for staff and easy for students to understand. So one of the things I asked all of our middle school teachers to do is make sure that these changes are shown in their course syllabi. And in fact, some of the teachers even have some of the real skills things posted outside of their doors before kids walk in. So that's been kind of neat to see. I've had some anecdotal conversations with parents about this, and as I kind of figured it was going to be this way, we probably have more conversation over the real skills things than actually the letter grades in the classroom. Because a lot of times that's what parents want to know, is they want to know what their behaviors of their students are like in the class. And again, it starts to muddy the water when you put those two things together, because you can have a student who works really, really hard as a student. They do all the work they're supposed to do. They study really hard and they get a C in a class. And then you can have a kid who's really, really bright and doesn't do any of the homework and just kind of blows all that off and can pass a test at a fairly decent level and gets a C in the classroom. And those two kids have the same grade. So when you look at them, you're kind of like, well, we know that they're not the same student. Now, when we break the behavior piece out of it, now we've got another way to say, hey, this is, you've got a student who struggles academically, but they work really hard. So that's something to really celebrate with them, because we know that hard work is something that they need to continue to do. You've got another student who appears to struggle academically, and they maybe just need a little kick in the pants to get moving on their motivation, and that may bring them, more academic success that way. So again, there's been some really neat conversations around this, and I've heard some really good things from parents at conferences. So.
I have a question on the rating, the 3, 2, 1.
Yep.
Is that somewhat formulated, or is that purely subjective?
That one is a little bit more subjective, but we tried to pick things within that were easy things for teachers to be able to point out to parents and students. Like the piece about effort and timeliness in a classroom. If a student has lots of late work, that makes it pretty easy to say, well, that one in that area is because of late work. Or if we're seeing a student who's getting lots of behavior referrals in a classroom for respect, it shows that way too.
Yeah, and I guess that's where, is it 1, is it 2, 5?
Yeah, we've had a little bit of conversation about the terminology used, and trying to pick words that aren't going to be offensive to people, because that's something that we need to be careful about, because from the research that we've done, we know that the way we present grades and the language that we use when we're talking about grades really does have a huge impact on whether students see those things as positives or negatives. A good example that we've had a lot of conversation about is in our typical 100% grading system, we have 10% of that, the 90% are the A's, and the 80% are the B's, and the 70% are the C's, and the 60% are the D's. We have 60% of our grading scale is failure. So the message that unintentionally sends is it's a lot easier to fail than it is to pass. And by using a system like that, when we've typically given zeros for work that's not turned in, the words that the researchers are using is it's the academic death penalty, because in a 100-point system, a 0, you can't recover from a 0 grade. So we're trying to look at those things a little bit differently and try to equalize the grades or the breakdowns a little bit to make it so that students can make a mistake or have a day where they don't get something done, and it doesn't completely eliminate any motivation for them to finish something and to finish any work for the rest of the whatever the term is. So,
What do you do for the kids who are very poor test takers?
you know,
And it really affects their...
yeah, and that's a really good point. But you know, what the research shows is that the number of students who actually have like test anxiety is really is a pretty small percentage. So the hope is that when we get to the point where that formative assessment piece has less of an impact on the grade, that students actually will feel like it's okay to make a mistake there, so that teachers can look at that formative assessment data and help craft things so that those kids who are struggling get some extra support so that they are successful on those final summative assessments.
Was there something wrong with the traditional testing and grading that you've done in the past, or did you just feel like this is an enhancement?
No, one of the things that I want in our system is I want our system to be clear to everybody on how a grade is derived, and it, from that analysis that we did at the middle school level, it's really not clear. And unless you're a student like Emma, who pays attention to all that stuff all the time, you may go from classroom to classroom and just kind of go, I don't have any idea where they're coming up with what my grade is, because it may be different. And again, some of the terminology and the way assessments are used from classroom to classroom varies so much that we need to do something to make it less like a guessing game and more like now I know what I need to do to improve in that area. So we did that analysis with the middle school as 12 classrooms. When we do that in the high school, we're going to even see more variation of the way grades are determined. What I really, my hope down the road is that I hear from students, this is my grade, not this is the grade that I was given by a teacher. And right now, a lot of kids just feel like the teacher's handing out a grade because they have no idea how they're getting it. So.
Would you say that now that you're implementing this at the middle school, that you would start the process in the high school with the survey on how many different strategies you have?
Yeah, we'll do that in the next couple of years, but we're going to spend the next 2 years for sure looking at what we're doing now and tweaking things so that when we get to the high school, we know that we've got a system in place that really works well. There's been a lot of discussion at the staff level about what should you do, how should we be making these changes because it's going to be like this in college or it's not going to be like this in college, and what is the college going to look at and all these kind of things. And colleges are also all over the board on how they look at grades, how they do grades, how they interpret grades, how they interpret things for admission, that I feel like maybe that's not the best model for us to follow, and that we should be, and that's why we looked at, quite frankly, research to come up with some things. And there are more and more schools that are looking at doing exactly what we're doing, breaking behavior away from content grade, because you do get a lot better picture as a parent and as a teacher of what who that student really is when you break those behaviors out of the content knowledge grade. So it's all about trying to be clear and provide clarity for everybody involved in that. So,
do you think there's a way to maybe put together whether it be like a online like presentation or something for parents?
Yeah,
because I know like just having kids, all my kids are have been middle school age or whatever. It's been very confusing this year. So with the
maybe you're one of those handful of people who filled out my survey that I sent out after first quarter. I've got you didn't?
I didn't.
It's on my weekly. It's on my week. I probably need to send it out by itself.
But I've had a lot of people asking me.
Yeah.
Which made me dig further into it and be like, I don't understand how you got this grade. So because it had changed from so many, just going through it so many years in a row.
It's certainly something that when we do you've been a part of that 5th grade to 6th grade transition.
Yeah.
This will be a part of that. And I can certainly, put
Or
this
I was
out
even thinking like on the
too.
website or something, just so
Yeah.
that as a board member, when people come to me, I can say, well, this, you can look at this, or, so you're not
Yeah.
getting bombarded either.
Yeah, and there should be, the teachers should have provided, I had a handout for them to provide in
There
their
was,
syllabus.
but it wasn't
for
very clear.
Okay,
So just as a parent, because I
Yeah.
go to all the conferences and everything too, but it just wasn't very clear as to the changes and how it would affect that final
Right.
grade.
well, and that's what
and
we've
that's-
kind of seen. We've kind of seen some grades overall in the middle school in the first 2 quarters probably take a dip from where they normally are
Mm-hmm,
because we're taking behavior out of that grade.
mm-hmm. Which isn't, I don't think it's a bad thing.
No,
I just-
and what we know from schools that have done this is they have seen exactly the same thing. And it's a matter of students getting used to the
new
system
way.
that we're doing things. And when they get used to it, things will be right back.
So
to
do you
where
think
they
that that would be hard for a high schooler to go through?
I don't. The way we're looking at doing this, I don't think it will, because we've got a handful of people at the high school who are already doing pieces
That
of this.
way?
Yeah, I've
Okay.
kind of told high school
That
staff
it might be coming?
that they know it's coming.
Okay,
I made it perfectly clear
Okay.
that we're starting in the middle school, but it's coming to you guys in a couple
Sure.
of years. And there are a couple of people who have, our earlier adopters have already started doing some things like this. So
sure.
the message has been there, like I said, for several years, because a lot of these conversations are, these things are pieces that we've talked about at the staff level
Mm-hmm.
for literally years. But interestingly, this is something that is so deeply ingrained in who a teacher is and about their
The way they're
their
doing it.
person and their professionalism that talking about a change like this can really be a tough thing for some people.
Mhm.
It's one of those deals. It's a cultural change. It's not like you can just say we're going to do it tomorrow and everybody's going to do it. It's something that takes literally years for people to kind of get on board with the idea. But I think staff know. I've been talking about this long enough that they know that it's not something that I'm not talking about anymore. This is continue the conversation. We want to be the best professionals that we can be. It means we need to look at research and we need to make sure that we're following whatever best practices in that. So,
Okay, any other questions? Thank you. Nice
bet.
presentation.
Thanks.
Moving down, reports and communication. Emma, you're up to bat.
Okay. So I thought I'd start off with sports tonight. I wanted to start off with the Bomber dance team. As many of you heard, they got first in kick and first in jazz at the section tournament. So they get to go to the state competition this weekend. Their jazz will be on Friday, and it'll be approximately 12:19. That's pretty specific. And then kick on Saturday will be at 11:44. So that's pretty exciting for those girls, and I know they work really hard. So that's awesome for our school. And then for girls basketball, they had their senior night on Saturday, and the final score was 54-62. And then they will be home again, hopefully tomorrow night. Boys basketball on Saturday night, they had a game as well at home, and the final score was 65-54. And then tomorrow they will head to Goodhue. For wrestling, the boys got the 6th seed on the 1AA bracket, so they will head to PEM on Thursday. And then another thing I wanted to talk about, we have a couple students who go to school here who compete on the Northfield High School gymnastics team. And they got second at their conference meet on Saturday, and then they will be competing for their section gymnastics meet in Farmington on Friday. And then going to other activities, the speech team got second this past Saturday at John Marshall, and they head to Farmington on Saturday. The school newspaper, The Lanterns, posted their fall sports book, which I know a lot of people really look forward to. It has great pictures in it, stats from different sports over the fall season, so a lot of people like to check that out. Another thing is on Thursday, the job fair will be held for high schoolers during their lunches, so that's really exciting for students to get to interact with different employers and find out different jobs in the community. And then juniors already registered for their classes today for their senior year, which is kind of crazy to think about. So yeah, I know a lot of people will be starting to do that as well in the other high school grades. So that's what I have for everybody tonight.
You have a lot.
Yeah.
Refresh on the job fair. What does it entail?
Well, we started that. This might be the 5th or the 6th year that
Maybe
we've done
sixth.
it. We just had, over the years, we've had lots of employers that have been asking us to kind of promote jobs in local businesses. So I think we had maybe 6 or 8 employers here the first year, and now the atrium is completely full.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had 13 or 14 or 15 last year, employers. Anywhere from Syngenta to McDonald's to, Treasure Island.
We had a couple come over from Redmond even last year.
Yeah, so.
The recruiters, military is always here.
It's a really good opportunity for students to see, what kind of summer opportunities or part-time opportunities are available in the community.
Thank you. Okay, moving on down to school board committee reports. Anyone have anything for the cause here? I know transportation was going to meet, but
So was facilities.
That's thrown out.
So we've had a lot of groups.
Yeah.
Well, GCD met.
Yep.
It was mainly our organizational meeting, the first one. They also had made a decision to not have the lead superintendent position.
Mm-hmm.
And you were aware of that, right?
Absolutely.
They're going to see how that goes the rest of this year and see if we feel like we need that person there again or how I don't know. But it passed with the vote to not have that lead superintendent at the meeting now that it was.
The turnover in the superintendents has been a lot, and Sherry does hold a superintendent license, and I think she has a good handle on the board, and I think she should be able to run her meetings without a superintendent there. We all voted for it. Plus, it's one additional meeting that takes me away from another meeting here, or when Mike Redmond was doing a meeting for him, and it just seemed like there was no real reason for us to be there.
Yeah,
we feel really good about the communication.
They weren't really. I mean, they were there for us to ask questions to, but I think just as easily us board members could ask questions of Sherry or our own superintendent as well. So, and then the other thing from that was they have a date set for the all county board meeting. So you'll probably be getting an invitation to that. It's March 27th. Did you get it?
We could do it.
Okay, 5:30 to 8:30. So I did mention that maybe a shorter time period might get more people. So they did say that they're going to look at possibly cutting the back end of it, like having the dinner is at 5:30 and then a short meeting, but then they're going to have like tours and stuff, and if you don't feel like you want to stay, that's going to be completely optional.
Great idea.
So that way it won't feel as long for if you don't have that much time to give. So yeah, consider it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a staff development meeting that I missed, or I was at right before the last meeting. But anyway, so what the PLCs were all going well. Everything's going good with that. They were having math presentations for the new curriculum in January. They're going to be have presentations coming to present all the different math curriculums. And they were looking into, because we're going to be purchasing that July 1st is the purchase date. So they were looking into who could maybe give them whatever they decide and who could give them the manuals and stuff so that they could start, writing curriculum ahead of time before that July one. Because to start and to have all that curriculum writing right there would be kind of tough. So they're looking into what they could do. And I don't know if they've chosen one yet. You guys know?
Pretty close.
Pretty close to choosing one? Okay. So yeah, so that's what was going on for them.
Nobody else had a committee. You had 2.
I had 2.
In transportation, we moved that to Monday. I don't remember now.
You have
We
one
sent
too?
it out.
Was it Monday or Thursday? Because it was on the 21st for a while, I thought, and then it moved to the 18th.
We'll have to look at it. Anyway, we have one coming up, and facilities, Dave is sending that out soon. And that's also Mike, and he's out this whole week, so we won't have one this week.
I was going to say the Ed Foundation
Their January meeting was during the school board convention, so I have the minutes here. And their budget for their program committee requests, they've made all their donations, so they'll be done with that for this year. But they are looking forward to the auction, which is April 6th, and that'll be at Mill Street this year. So mark your calendars for that. And there's another board meeting coming up on February 21st.
Change to Mill Street, huh?
Yeah, back at Mill Street.
We're gonna have Ed Foundation come and make a presentation or just reacquaint with them.
We have a lot of presentations coming up.
Okay.
We're trying to get everybody in.
All right, any other committees? Moving down to administrative reports. Jen, I think, did you hand in a?
I did. I just had one other thing to add. Just shout out to the community. Our pennies for patients totals we got in. Remember, that goes to research for blood cancers, and we are at over $4,400. And we had set a goal for $1,500. We haven't done it for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And so it was just really exciting to see them. The kids got excited about it, and the top class was Miss Nelson's class in kindergarten.
Oh,
they get a pizza party, so it was very exciting. So I didn't have those totals when I made the report. So.
Wow.
And if you follow Mr. P on Twitter, you get to see the good calls, the good news calls of the day. They're just fun because a lot of the principals that belong to MESPA and their organization, this has become kind of their thing, and it's just. If you want a happy moment, just hop on Twitter and look at all the elementary principals that do it. I just think it's really fun. So, and sometimes even teachers get to call their husbands and wives.
Yes, I would like to tell you what that is like. Because some are like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "No, I have the number. You don't need." They're like, "Well, I don't know the number." "Oh, don't worry about that. I got that." So it is pretty fun.
It is fun. And then here's Tim's up on the screen.
Tim, you have anything to contribute?
I honestly don't remember what I put up there. It's been so weird. It's been so weird for the last 2 weeks. I don't know what's going on. No, we've had our bowl days, and I think those are going pretty well. We'd never anticipated doing bowl the way we're doing it, because who would have ever thought we would have weather like this all right in a row? It's just. I think everybody is having a really hard time getting into the fact that we started second semester and we had 4 days, and then maybe we've had 4 days in the last 3 weeks since then. I don't know.
It has been unique.
Yeah, it's been weird.
I can see tech in here.
Nope, they don't have to.
Okay. Community ed activities?
Yeah, I have a few things. I also want to say congratulations to the dance team. Amazing accomplishment. I think this is 17th straight year they've gone in high kick, and about half those years they've gone in jazz as well. So, for as crazy as that sounds, they don't get enough credit and enough recognition for what they do. Proud of those girls. They work really hard. So, wanted to say that. I also want to say congratulations to Nick Ingebrigtsen, a junior here. He was selected as a state winner of the Excel Award. Only 32 juniors are selected statewide. The award's given to juniors. It's based on their involvement in state high school league activities, leadership, and volunteering in the community. And you've probably heard me say this a few times. We've had a lot of success in the last few years with this award, and we've been represented 4 of the last 5 years. And actually 5 of our kids. 1 year we had 2 winners of the 32. So credit a lot of things. They're great coaches, great kids, obviously, great advisors. But we offer a lot of activities that a lot of schools our size don't do. So I think that all kind of combines to make our kids great candidates for that. A couple meetings ago, I talked about the football schedule and potentially having 0 weeks, starting a week early. Well, I went to a vote and it failed. A lot of ADs thought, and a lot of schools, principals, and ADs thought starting August 5th was too early. And in fact, when you look at the schedule, the only teams affected by La Crescent dropping football were those scheduled. So only 7 schools were affected by it. So those who saw the old schedule saw, well, if I vote no, we don't have to start early, we still get our full schedule. So you need 2/3 vote to pass, and it failed. So our most recent proposal goes back to our original schedule, where if you have the Crescent Honor schedule, which we did, you'd have an open week, so we only have a 7-game schedule currently. It hasn't passed yet. I think it's going to, but and we're still not finished with that vote. Some of the votes are still trickling in. So if that's the case, we'll only have 3 home games for our seniors. So I feel terrible for those kids, but I'll do whatever it takes to find them a game. I'll just have to look to, sometimes someone drops football up north or something like that, or look to Wisconsin to try to find a game. With district football, it kind of eliminated teams looking for games. That was the idea behind district football. We don't have conferences anymore for football. It's a district. And so everybody's got a full schedule until somebody drops their program for a year or 2, and it leaves teams without a full schedule. So looks like we'll have a 7-game schedule to start with for football anyways. I wanted to congratulate One Act Play. They're one of 3 schools in the conference to star at the HVL Festival. So they did a great job. They went on to subsections and they didn't advance from there, but they had a great season. Robotics goes to Egan this weekend. They'll compete for the first time. And I also just want to give a quick shout out to our coaches and advisors who were super patient and lost a lot of practices during the last couple of weeks. And a thank you to Beth for letting us compete a couple times actually, because we're in a heck of a lot better shape than a lot of schools. A lot of schools are playing 5 or 6 games a week. And we compete tomorrow and Thursday. That's all we have this week, so we're doing pretty good. So that's all I have. Looking to do a pep fest on Thursday for the dance team before we send them off. So we'll do that before the girls leave. The girls are going to leave at about 3:15. So if anybody's in town, they're kind of going to line up by like the Freeburg Insurance part of town. See the girls off. They'll have an escort out of town too. So if anybody's available, we'll go see them off.
During the last 2 meetings, you tonight, Jake, and Tim at our previous meeting, you talked about the number of activities and opportunities for our kids and relative to our size. Is that true? Is that, when you talk to your peers?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. It's I think we're kind of right in the middle of the HVL and the NCAA year, whether we're in the big half or the small half. But we offer as much or more than even some of the bigger schools, both in academics and activities and athletics. It's great that we can provide all those opportunities to students, because ultimately kids that are involved in what we're doing in school and beyond just coming to school and going to math class, kids that are involved in activities and athletics are better students, and it makes them have better connections to what we're doing here and what our mission is. So it's wonderful that everybody has the opportunities to do those things that we do.
Thank you. Beth?
Mine goes with the bold days, so can we wait on mine?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Public input. Due to data privacy concerns, the speaker may address the criticism toward the individual district employee, may not, by the way. Individual complaints should be handled privately with the building administrators. Comments from visitors must be informational in nature and may not exceed 3 to 5 minutes. We always go 3. The board cannot engage in discussion or debate in that time. Having said all of that stuff, is there anyone here that would like to speak to the board in regard to district issues? Then we're moving on. Nothing under old business. Under new business, consideration to approve the 18-19 spring assistance.
Yeah, take a look at that list. Lots of names on there. Should make a note. Traverse City coaches, none of them are paid. And then anything without a volunteer after it, they are also unpaid positions. There might be a situation where we use some fundraising money to pay for a coach at an extra level. So that's our list of coaches. Softball, 7th grade is left open. It's if we need it. We're not really anticipating having numbers for a 7th grade softball team. Hopefully we get them, and hopefully we will need a 7th grade softball coach, and then also look for an assistant girls track coach. Still, so.
And we deal with this every year, but everyone, regardless of volunteer or paid, goes through the same process, which includes a background check.
Correct, yep, background check and board approval. So even if somebody comes up later, anybody will have contact with the kids, we ask for that to be done. So.
I have a question, I guess, about the payment schedule or the say under baseball where there's a salary, but then it says no coaches is the paid by fundraiser.
Oh, that's the
What is
next,
it?
you jumped ahead,
Oh.
that's okay, it's the next one down, it'll be,
Oh, that's the next one.
Yep.
That doesn't look like this.
right, that's probably why it's a little confusing, sorry about that.
Okay.
So
Never
I
mind.
I would abstain as the potential 7th grade baseball coach this year.
Yeah, you can't vote.
So I will not vote, but looking for a motion to approve the 18-19 spring assistant coaches.
So moved.
Brenda on the motion,
I'll second.
seconded by Bill. Further discussion? All in favor of the spring assistant coaches, say aye.
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 Opposed? I abstain, so that passes on a 4-0 with 1 abstention. Okay, consideration to approve the C-Squad coaching positions.
Okay, I will kind of get into why this is on here. If you remember, 3 years ago, it's hard to believe it's already been that long, I thought it was 2.
More than that.
More than that, but
Yeah.
that's when we used it as cuts. We put it on their C-Squad coaches as cuts. Oddly enough, our number of participants has gone up and our number of students overall has gone down. Great problem to have. But what's happening is these C-Squad coaches are needed especially the highlighted ones that you'll see in their football, volleyball, and basketball, boys basketball. They are going out and doing a lot of fundraising to make sure that these coaches are paid. After talking with Jake and talking with other people in the HVL, we just feel like the number of people going out and fundraising is getting more and more all the time. We've had those conversations because the number of participants has gone up. Now, this doesn't mean it's automatic. When you see these guys listed here, Jake comes to me, even we had 1 extra cross-country runner last year. Wasn't it last year?
Mm-hmm.
And he'll come to me and say, we're 1 over. Well, we think we can handle 1 additional runner. We'll absorb that. But sometimes he comes to me and says, oh my goodness, we've got 6 additional at this level. We had a situation where we had boys basketball in 8th grade. They had 22 boys out for boys basketball. You can't have 1 coach with 22 boys in basketball. So there's some things like that. So Jake always comes forward. It's not an automatic thing. But what we are looking for is to reinstate the Schedule C process. It's already on Schedule C, but we would like the C-Squad coaches to be somewhat reinstated. So we're looking for your consideration. I did put it on there what it would cost. Keep in mind that girls basketball, baseball, and softball typically don't need those. Is that right, Jake?
Correct.
Or what am I saying it
We
all
especially
correctly?
hope girls basketball will be back there. Those are typically your C-Squad levels. Sports that everybody has C-Squad, we just haven't had the numbers. Baseball, softball, the conference does not create a C-Squad schedule like they do volleyball and basketball and stuff like that. But sometimes we have enough numbers to get games, especially C-Squad baseball. So for sure the basketballs, volleyball, and football, we'd hope that we'd have enough kids for a C-Squad level.
So I guess what I was saying is Schedule C you've already approved. When you approve the teacher's contract and those types of things, you approve Schedule C. But what's happening is because we don't know, what if they can't fundraise enough to get a C-Squad coach? And then they don't have that coach there. We just think it's important that we're keeping kids safe, and if they have the numbers, we should be providing that coach. We shouldn't be having them going out and fundraising and selling who knows what to have a coach. I mean, that is our job to provide those for kids. So it's a very small number. We added them all up. I mean, if it was to ever happen, it would be 17,000. That won't happen. You won't have that many numbers. But we had to be fair and show you the possibilities that could be there. I think you will see volleyball, football, boys basketball even. I think you'll see some of those come back. The head coaches actually brought this proposal to us. It was a signed letter by almost all the head coaches that they feel that this is just becoming, we should be providing this. So you are voting on this tonight. I typically give you a recommendation. My recommendation would be bring back C-Squad coaches because our athlete numbers are up there. I trust Jake to always give me the right balance of coach versus number of participants and things like that. So it's up to you.
Brenda, you had a question or a statement?
Oh, I just wondered what it meant when it said no coach, but then it said assistant paid by fundraiser.
So I think the answer to that question is the conference doesn't create a 9th grade schedule for baseball, but we always have enough kids to get games with Pine Island and Castle Maryville, other schools that have big baseball numbers. So they have a program assistant who will take those kids on those days, and then they usually find money to pay that person.
Good question.
Yeah.
And Schedule C again is the activities and athletics or the activities in general and the schedule by which we pay them.
That's correct, yep.
That's all part of the teacher's contract.
Yep.
And even if we don't have teachers, educators as our coaches, they still adhere to the same contract.
We do, yep, they adhere to that contract. That's correct, yep. We're actually looking at it right now, at revamping it, making some changes to it. So these have always been on there. They never came off. We just stopped paying them. And one of the arguments I get from coaches is that kids register, they're paying $125 to play 9th grade basketball, and we're not going to provide a coach for them. We do, but it's on the coaches to find somebody for them.
So I had a question from the convention. One thing that came up was booster clubs and trying to address them, and then it became the issue of how much funding that they were giving, and then creating conflict with Title IX.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just kind of quickly looking up there, we're getting the football boosters, and paying for the coach.
Yeah.
But then there's not really an offset. So how do you deal with that?
So we do kind of keep track of that. Luckily, we have a very active football booster club, but to kind of counteract that, we have a very active dance booster club as well, who pay for some coaches and pay for like a coach bus for the girls and stuff like that. So they pretty much balance each other out, our two most active groups. So
We're lucky though, because that can be a very difficult problem.
Anything else? If not, I would look for consideration to approve the C-Squad coaching positions.
So is this are we approving if the numbers permit?
Yeah, of course,
Or
it's always that way.
That always, okay.
Yeah.
Even, JV, any of the things on there, we've had, things were reduced or we don't hit that 12 mark, and Emma remembers that very clearly. Those are the kinds of things we always look at. They don't go off Schedule C. You'll see that in negotiations. We try really hard not to remove those things because you never know for sure when they're going to come back.
Sure.
So, these are just, if they get the numbers next year, it's nothing for this year, it's for next year.
like, just like our assistant coaches, like 7th grade softball, we might not have a team. We obviously won't pay somebody.
Right.
So same
Right.
situation.
Okay.
Motion to approve. Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Katie,
Second.
second by Anna. Other discussion? All in favor of the consideration to approve the C-Squad coaching position, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Discussion item, review of procedures for bowl days and snow days. I have personally asked for this conversation. I don't think Beth or staff has shied away from it at all. It's been a very unique 2 weeks for students, for parents, for admin, for teachers. It's a wow time. And I think that we need to just discuss bold, what it means, snow days and what they mean. I believe I see where our governor may be giving us something, dispensation, or I don't know what the right
I got
word
that in my
is.
report too.
All right, then I'll keep my mouth shut.
That's okay, it's
All
all
right.
there. Well, you've seen this document before, perhaps not the new board members. Last year we started talking about this. I had a meeting, I kind of created this and had people come in and we talked about it. About 5 people attended the first meeting, and then I had a second meeting after we made some of those changes, and Tim and Jennifer were obviously a part of that. And then at that next meeting, we had about 2 people that came. I think a lot of people might have thought I was a little bit crazy in kind of just putting out this e-learning day, but we were hoping we would maybe have one day to try it and to practice it. Because we know that kids 2nd grade through 12th grade have devices in their hands. We know this is a way to get through learning if we needed to. We saw some of the hurricanes down south and what that did to learning, and to not be able to keep that going, we knew that that was important. So I'm not going to read this to you, but BOLD stands for Bomber Online Learning Day. If you're in Goodhue, you have a Gold Day. If you're in Zumbrota, Mazeppa, you have a Wild Day, a Weather Impacted Learning Day. Every district has just a little bit of a different acronym. Only, believe it or not, only 42% of schools in the state of Minnesota have e-learning. Even though we were able to do that 2 years ago, you could have applied and can use up to 5 e-learning days a year. So for us, I'll go back up here. What a BOLD Day is basically an alternative way for kids to get their learning. The teachers are available for a set amount of time. I have received some questions on that and why they're available for only 4 hours of the day. We wanted to make sure that it was really compact and kids knew that they could get online with their teachers and do some of those things, and maybe Emma can step in if she's got any good examples for this. But it really is a way to continue learning if we needed to do that. We had that tornado day, and luckily that was only 1 day. We did not go with a BOLD Day on that day in particular, but wouldn't have been great if we could have, if it would have been 3-4 days that we didn't have things like that. Why is Cannon Falls going to using online learning days? We kind of live in a world. If you are part of college, a lot of your classes are online. Emma, again, anytime you want to step in, you can talk about this. Only because we know, and I know Nora's got kids that are in college as well, we know that a lot of these classes are now online. You have to be able to adapt to this world and do some of those things. So we've got some of those things on there. When do we have BOLD Learning Days has been the big questions. You'll get a call from me, and I know you're sick of hearing my voice at this point. I wish there's a way I could change that. But you will get a call that says if it's a snow day or a BOLD Day. And just so you know, teachers, and this is very common in most districts, have 2 snow days built in. Paraprofessionals, a lot of people have that in their contracts. So they get 2 snow days. There's some years we never use those. We just have additional days, and that doesn't hurt anybody. But we do like to have those 2 days to keep our staff and our students safe. And after that, we can go up to 5 BOLD days. And I'd like to reference my board report, if you have that now. Switch over there a little bit. We do have 165 days that are required by the state of Minnesota. We have to have students for 165 days. Our calendar has 174 days built into it. It's so the 3rd graders can go on a field trip, and the 9th grade can go do a science project down at the river. All of those things that we take kids off campus for, school districts build that in. That's why you'll see some districts have 174, one have some 176, all of those things. But we have 174 built in, and we can use 5 e-learning days. Okay? So when you go back to this document, the reasons why we have them, you never think you're going to need 5 BOLD days. But that's exactly what we've done this year. We have had those 5 BOLD days, or e-learning days. The options that are in front of you, and we're not going to consider this tonight because we're not there, but where school boards will get involved is you will have to decide if you want to do no more e-learning days and schedule a makeup day on the calendar. Now, if you've only got 1 day to make up, I've seen it, and Bob, you have too, where we just kind of omit that. We feel like a day in June isn't going to do us any good when testing and assessment and people are leaving for family trips. If it's 1 day, we might sit there and say, well, I don't know. But there's districts that don't have e-learning days, and what they're thinking is, we've missed 8 school days. We're not going to have spring break this year. So they're having meetings tonight talking about omitting their spring breaks and possibly, things like that. So your second choice would be no e-learning days and no makeup days. So if tomorrow was a snow day, I would most likely call it as a snow day. And then we would come together again at our next meeting and we would reassess that. You guys would give me some direction if you felt like I was not calling them correctly as far as snow days or BOLD days, those types of things. And then the last option is you can have as many e-learning days as you want. We can continue to have as many as we want. They just don't count towards your 165. So once you've hit your 5, and I think eventually they'll remove that cap because down in Florida, when they have the hurricanes, they need more than 5, those kinds of things. There's situations where that could occur. So this is kind of a summary of what has happened. Lori does an amazing job of keeping track of all this, and that's what's up on the screen now. She writes down why I called it the way I called it. She gives us some parameters. We like to keep track of this data, and she puts it all together for me. She keeps track of when it's a couple hours late or an early out or anything like that. So Lori does a nice job of doing that, and then she submits it to the state as far as our minutes and things that we have done. So, which one do you want back up? The bold day one?
No,
The
Lori's?
list of them.
Lori's list, yeah.
Oh, I already took it down. I'd have to go into my email
Oh,
to find it.
Just to talk about bold
Yeah.
days though, for me anyways, I think they've worked fairly well. Teachers have been very good at responding. I know I wasn't expecting a snow day or being home 3 days in a row, and so I didn't bring my textbooks home. And my teachers for their bold day assignment would say, okay, you need to read these pages in the textbook. So I'd just shoot them an email and I'd be like, well, I don't have my textbook. Could you maybe send me pictures of the book, or is there any other way that I can access that? And they would respond right away. I got pictures of the textbook, or here's how you can access it online, things like that. And for the most part, a lot of my classes, we do watch videos or do have days where we read from our textbook and take notes on that independently. So it's just been a good opportunity at home to do those things. So I think it's worked out pretty well, and I know a lot of other students have not had too much trouble with
A
it.
couple of the glitches we had, and we're learning. I mean, the principals and I, we have sat down after each one. I've had them go back to their teachers. We've got a huge Google Doc going of the, whoops, we learned from that. Oh, that doesn't work. One of the big ones is, what do you do when the internet goes down? And you know, we had one day where Frontier and MediaCom were down, and then 2 days later, if you're like me, Northfield Wi-Fi was down. And those are things that you can't get over. We have some hotspots, some families have hotspots on their phones and things like that. But again, I heard from parents, and maybe you heard differently, how adaptive the teachers were. Like, I get it, it's okay, you know, and I sent out emails to the staff saying, you know, try as hard as you can. I know I saw Tim and Jennifer sent things out that just said, let's try to remember that some of these kids don't have access to internet. And just, you know, when we applied for this, some of that Blandon grant that you've heard of from Amy and stuff that they're working on, we have portable hotspots for kids that don't have them. We also are planning them around town in areas that we know just get terrible Wi-Fi, and we also have some that'll be mobile now as of spring that can go on the buses. So when they do go to La Crescent, like he's talking about, you know, that gives them an opportunity. Even if they want to listen to a book online or something like that, they would have those opportunities. So the bold online procedures you've actually seen before and kind of adopted. It's not a policy, we use it as procedures. I think it's really good. The principals and I and my admin team will tweak it at the end of this year. We'll take all of that Google Doc and we'll kind of tweak it and bring it back to you again, because I think that's going to be important. Your new superintendent might be from a district that has e-learning as well, and wouldn't it be great if they had input? I think that would be good. And then the additional information that's on this sheet, I hope you never need to see again. I mean, I hope we never get to the point where we're talking about 6 or 7 snow days. I hope we don't have tornadoes in September. We had Mrs. Reich's funeral, and one of the most beautiful things we could do was offer a bold day, because we would never have found enough subs. So to have this in place has been far more beneficial than the hiccups that we've had with it. So, you know, if you have input, you could certainly email that to me. I'd be happy to put that on the Google Doc so that we can all use that in our next year's plan. But so far, I would give it glowing recommend. You know, it's really been a great tool for us.
I am so glad that Emma commented on that, because you're the day-to-day user.
Yeah,
And
it's been
We
really.
really needed to hear some of
You
that.
don't know ahead of time to bring it with them.
Anything from admin at all on glitches or?
Well, I mean, the biggest glitch is the fact that we have had to do so many so quickly together. And I don't think we would have ever anticipated any like this. So it's been a nice opportunity, I think, for kids to get something a little bit different and to try to make that out of school time meaningful. You know, I have heard anecdotally from some parents that have had issues either with connectivity or the biggest one has probably been staff have put too much work for kids out there. And I think that it's maybe a little bit better for them to overdo things, and we can back off and to not put enough out there. So it's every bold day we've had, I've sent emails out to staff saying, just keep in mind we've got some kids who don't take Chromebooks home. We've got some kids who don't have internet access at home, or they have, it may be through a cell phone only. So this is not like a daily homework assignment where if the kid doesn't have it done, you're gonna, come at them hard and heavy with the consequences. So give them some time to do things, and that I think has worked out really well. We've had some kids that have come back kind of stressed because they're not used to doing all of that work by themselves without having an instructor or somebody right there helping them. But we're working through it. So,
Jen, a uniquely different situation.
Remember, in my building, I have only 2 grade levels that actually have devices in their hands at home. And of those 2 grade levels, there are still a handful that choose not to send that device home. And I really want to thank the teachers who have been, I have some teachers who are video recording themselves.
Oh, they're remarkable.
Sending that out and coming up with those different creative plans. And I don't know if any of you have seen any of them, but I would love to share it with you at some point. It's a bingo card. You have to create a bingo of some sort.
I was just going to talk about that. I have a first grader, and
you don't think you can do it in first grade, do you?
You would think that it would be really, really basic. And as a parent who is attempting to work from home with kids there, it's stuff that is very appropriate to their age level, but it's also fun, and it's stuff that I can easily understand to keep them moving along. And I also have a 4th grader, and they don't send their devices home.
Yep.
So they teachers had sent worksheets, and they said, if you don't have a printer, don't worry about that. Use any piece of paper, write the answers down. We'll go over it when they bring it back to school. And for us, we live far enough out that we didn't have any of the internet connectivity. Ours worked, which was a blessing. But for us, it worked great. I've talked to a number of colleagues outside of our district who are in that not 42% that don't have this option, and they wish they did.
Well, and my kids don't have that option either, and I really wish that they did. You know what I mean?
Because people don't know, and to get back to the governor's situation, he said it out loud. We all heard him say it, but he never said 1, 2, or 3 days. He never said which day. Lori hasn't been directed how to code which day he meant. We haven't gotten that. I sat with the Commissioner of Education on Friday, and she could not give me an answer when we asked her. I also emailed her and has not responded to that. So we just don't know yet. And so I think we're in a better situation than some schools where they don't know what to tell their teachers. Do you pull a spring break when everyone's got plans? Should we be looking at Monday or Friday of Easter, those types of things? So I think we're sitting in a really good situation, but we have learned a lot from what we've done so far. So,
is there any program out there that would allow middle schoolers or high schoolers to be able to be online in a classroom with their teacher? Is that even?
Some of that through Schoology. Some of it.
You can.
So Schoology has a chat feature. So if the kids,
Yeah, it'll show them that they're online, right?
Yeah, you can have a chat back and
or
forth.
you have I guess for the good students, I think it's great. But maybe for the kids who get their stuff done in 45 minutes and boom, that's done. I don't know that they're actually getting a lot of learning out of it.
I do know. I saw some of Jennifer's teachers, the ones that send out the podcasts and things like that. They were a little bit more interactive with the kids. So.
And I was just curious if that's a possibility, because I didn't even know if that's even a possibility.
But it's interesting too, of the ones that went out, how many, I haven't specifically asked those teachers, but how many of, asking your class, how many of you watched the video with?
Right.
You know what I mean? Because that would mean the parents would have to have been home.
Right.
Unless they had their devices, which I guess the 2 I'm thinking of were in 3rd grade, so they would have.
So I have one student who really relies on the teacher presentation of the. He can't learn from reading it. He just can't. And so he was very anxious and confused about the lesson he was supposed to do. So I appreciate the more time to get it done and everything. But so for us, it was the e-learning was a little more of a challenge, and I felt like they weren't doing enough. But
Interesting.
but that's just me, you know,
And
thinking
that's
they
where
shouldn't be done in an hour.
I think it really depends on the class too. Like some
Absolutely.
of my teachers, the assignment would take me 15 minutes. Others, it would take me 1 hour and 30 minutes to
Right.
2 hours. So I think it really depends on the class and
and how much effort you put.
exactly. Yeah, I think it all really depends. I also have a 6th grade sister, and I know that they had her log on to certain other accounts that they use at school, and that was a struggle for some of her other classmates to get into those accounts. So I think it's just learning from it and seeing what you do. And also I think as you get older, if you're a junior or senior, it's easier because, you know, you're used to that kind of stuff. And you don't need as much support from parents who might not be home and might be working. So.
Right.
So I surveyed, I
I
put
was
a
just
survey
curious.
link out to parents,
Uh-huh.
actually 2 weeks ago, and then it didn't work, and then I redid it last Friday and it worked. And I've got about 58 responses to that so far, and, you know, I think I haven't really gone through them very closely yet, but I'd say the majority of people are saying that things work fine and they didn't have too much trouble with it. So, again, it kind of depends on the back end, what teachers are doing with that too. You know, I would certainly hope that our math teachers weren't saying, here's a new math lesson, go learn that on your own.
No, I
but,
think it
but,
was.
but still, I would hope it would be something like, you know, we talked about this yesterday or 3 days ago when we had school the last time.
Oh, and that's probably what it was, and then it was.
So, yeah.
I don't remember.
And honestly, that's what our staff meeting was gonna be about last Thursday morning, and then we didn't have school. So.
Right. It's a little hard when you have so many in a row too,
Yeah,
because there's
it
only
is.
so many small assignments you can hand out without new lecture.
Yeah.
So no, I think they did a wonderful job. I was just curious if there were any other, you know, I'm sure they
Yeah,
were
I mean,
trying to
it's
think of other.
definitely gonna be something that's gonna kind of spur some creativity and some more conversation about things. We have ways of doing, what are they, like screencasts? So screencasts where teachers can, you know, go through how to do something on their screen with voiceover. They have the ability to do that. But a lot of them haven't really done it because there hasn't been a need.
Sure.
And now, in the
Missy
last
Pepper did one and it came
couple of
out
weeks,
good.
we've kind of shown why we
A
need
lot
to
of
be
trial
able
and
to do
error.
that kind of thing. So.
Yeah. Okay.
The last little bit, I'm just saying this mostly for Nora's sake. I'm sure you got notice of it, but I did take away the PLC for Wednesday afternoon. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday look like days that we're going to have full days of school. And no matter how important those PLCs are, because they are extremely important, I just kind of made the call this afternoon to pull that so that we could have a full day of learning for our kids. And I know that our teachers support that. I got responses from many of them saying, thank goodness I need a full day with the kids. So, you know, we've got a lot of great things going on our PLCs, but again, just kind of a decision I made because I think it's important to have at least one day that looks like we could have a full day of school. And so we hope to resume those PLC schedules later on, but again, another option to look at if we end up having a bunch more school closings. But I think we're done now. I think everything's from here on out.
We haven't even hit March yet.
Well, I guess my biggest concern with it is truly the technology and the families that maybe don't have technology at home.
But they all have it from
Internet.
the school.
Right,
Oh, okay.
and so a couple of comments I got was the textbook, the ability to print something that came out. And so if we continue we already have 5, we're looking at a potential one coming up this week. The snow usually comes in March.
There'll be snow days from here on out.
Right.
And then
and
we'll bring
so-
it back to the board. You'll
Right.
have to decide if we want to make those up or not.
Right, so then, how much do we really want to use bold days early would be my question in the winter season, kind of from a learning, you know.
I've
'cause
never
it's
thought
unique.
of it.
Yeah, you know, so, do we let those kids have a activity day outside like we used to have as little
Well,
kids?
we have
in-
2 of those. Do you mean do more of those?
How many
Well,
snow days do we get?
Yeah, just calling it a snow day
2 snow days.
versus a bold day.
Or maybe
And what
we
about
could
the
meet in the middle and do
day?
snow day, bold day, snow day, bold day, something like that.
Something,
Okay.
yeah, so.
Brenda had a question.
I was wondering, so we're allowed 2 snow days as well?
That's what the contract says, is that
And
we
then
do
what
Tuesdays.
what about the tornado day? How would that
I'll file that as an emergency day. The mayor did declare it as a city of emergency, so it allows us to do that as
So
well.
we've used the 2, but if the governor forgives 2 or 3 days.
But we already did bold days, so the teachers can count that as one of their 185 days that they do. So it kind of comes down to teacher contract as well.
But how many actual snow days did we use? That's what I was not sure.
We had 2 snow days, and then we've done the 5 bold days, and we had the tornado day.
So
We've had a lot of days.
So they're all used up.
Was your question, Bill, we're burning bold days too early, possibly?
Possibly. You know, it is a unique season, but
On
typically,
average, we only use 2 a year.
right, typically a lot of the snow storms come in early March.
Why are you doing
It's just the way it is.
Just how it's been.
Bill
You know, there's
tells
always
us.
the
Oh, we
boys
did use-
basketball snow
We did use
storm.
our 2 snow days though, so. And the bold days.
I think we'll be, we have options that I can bring to you later. We do have the Friday and the Monday of Easter. We do have June, our last day of school is the last day of May. But I think you need to remember that the quality of those days, I would take a bold day over a day in June, any day of the week, because it just becomes crazy. And Emma's shaking her head, and every parent in the room is shaking their head, because we know that what we're looking for is quality, and is a bold day as quality as them learning here? Absolutely not, but they're getting something. And so we've used that. We'll move over to snow days now, but it'll be the board. We'll bring that back to you and say we use 2 or 3 more. You may say we need to do something. My recommendation would not be for next Monday, even though it's President's Day. It's too soon. We may be out of the woods now. I think people have already made plans for those weekends. It's too close to the day to pull that. But we can certainly look at other things down the road. But let's see how things kind of go. Every board is having the same discussion tonight.
No, I recall,
Yeah.
giving the days back when I was on the board before, so it does happen.
And luckily in my 8 years here, I've had 3 years where we haven't used any of them. And that's kind of lucky too, when we just don't need them. Everyone works every day, and we just go on, and then something else happens, and the reason why we might forgive the 3rd one the following year is because the year before they didn't have any, and it kind of ends up just being a balancing act. This year is just complete. No one would expect this.
Just a good perspective, as I asked Mr. Fogarty one of the days last week, I said, okay, you've been doing this for a long time. How many days do you ever remember having in a row? And he said, the most I can remember is 2 days in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just such a unique year. I mean, what are you going to do?
Okay, anything else? It's been really insightful. I really appreciated hearing you, and it helps a lot, Anna, when you interact with your kids and make that discussion. Makes me get it better. Anything else? Okay, moving down. Number 4, School Board Recognition Week is the 18th to the 22nd. You were wondering why all that fun stuff at the end.
Thank you, Lori.
Please take a moment to say thank you to the school board members who give countless hours of service and dedication to our school district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You should have a beautiful signed document. Do they have that? I didn't get it back.
It's sitting on someone's desk.
That would be mine. No.
So, when we don't finish all this stuff, when all this stuff doesn't get finished, where does it end up going? Teachers' lounge
Josh
or?
Davison.
Huh?
Josh and Zay.
It doesn't go to waste.
No.
For sure. Okay, number 5. I called it resignation. I'm so sorry, but it is retirement.
Yeah, he ended a day too late to get it on the agenda, but I did ask him today if I could put it on the agenda for tonight, because our next board meeting is going to be all kind of related to the superintendent search, and I wanted to dedicate that time to just that. So Ross Peterson said that I could put it on the agenda tonight, and I'm really sad to see him go, because he's been here forever. I mean, he's just really been kind of an icon in our physical education department. And there were years, I was his principal as well, and worked with him as a colleague, and he's just always the guy that says yes. always says yes to whatever. If you go down there in the morning, he greets the kids. He is the person that greets the kids when they get off the bus. Deanne is another one of them, but Ross is out there every morning, rain, shine, snow, whatever. He's out there greeting everyone, and he just does such a neat job. My favorite memory of him is he always borrows whoever he's teaching with Sue Bramer and Diane Teeter, and they always wore their bifocals. And they were always bright pink or bright yellow or some obnoxious color, you know. And he would always forget his, so he would borrow the ladies' bifocals. And it was just, he would wear them around and be proud of the fact that he had bright pink bifocals on. And so when they retired, Molly, who now works with him, she doesn't wear bifocals, so I'm not sure how he's been doing things. But anyway, just congratulations to Ross. He's had a beautiful career at Cannon Falls. And we're sad to see him go, but I think they've got some big plans in retirement here, so we're really excited for him. Great guy.
He's my neighbor.
Yeah.
When we had the tornado, I was doing work at home, and he stepped out in front of my pickup truck and said, "Why don't you come with me? We're going to the school."
Because I called him and said I needed him.
And that's exactly what we did. I think we moved some cots from the elementary school up here, and I had no idea what we were doing, but Ross dropped everything. He was in the neighbor's yard cleaning up the neighbor's stuff. So some people are
They're the yes people.
Yeah,
They
I wouldn't
say
say
yes.
irreplaceable, but they go that extra mile all the time, and that's
Ross.
Ross for sure. So, and you're telling us that he is finished at the end of this year.
We tried talking him out of it. Lori had him almost convinced, but he seems pretty serious, so we're going to have to let him go. So.
We knew this day was coming.
Right.
So we would need a motion to accept the retirement of Ross Peterson at the end of the school year.
Correct.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Brenda. Seconded.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Bill. Any other discussion?
Gratefully so.
Yeah.
With regrets, all in favor of approving the retirement of Ross Peterson, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, informational items for our next board meeting. You see them all here. Put you on the spot. You've got 27 seconds. What is going on legislatively for us very quickly? Anything?
Lots of early talk, lots of early bills. I was going to send something out to you. I'm going to wait on it. There's so much changing right now. I'll be up at the Capitol in 2 weeks presenting on special education and some of the cross-subsidy things. That's the big focus this year, is trying to fix some of that funding. So you will get that information a little early in the season. I think we're going to get 2 and 2, if not 3 and 3, though, in funding. I think it's going to be that high. So Wells seems pretty dedicated to that. Let's hope.
A teacher, right?
Yes, former teacher.
Yeah, always helps. Okay, anything else that you need for the cause? It sounds like we're going to have some different presentations coming up, so we'll deal with them. But if you have anything for the cause that you need to put on the agenda, please contact Lori or Beth, and we'll see what we can do to get it done.
If the next meeting stays completely MSBA related, I most likely won't be here. It just allows you guys to work on your timelines and things like that. So I don't want you to think I'm missing a meeting, but those conversations are great to have, and I don't need to be here if there's nothing else on the agenda. So keep that in mind. Correct.
Okay, board members, any last second things for the cause? Okay, if not, I would look for a motion to adjourn this meeting. If not, it isn't really that hard, Anna, but everybody has a hard time.
I can't do it all the time.
And the second?
I'll second.
Katie on the second. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are finished. Thank you. Good.